Welcome to today's session on the two most very important and critical topics for our industry: how to become a sustainability stroke ESG professional, a practitioner's perspective, and an overview of fatality risk in the mining industry. Very important topics and essential to the industry. My name, as mentioned, is George Asongo. Just a little correction. I'm the General Manager, Technical Services for Asante Gold and the international representative of AusIMM Ghana. I do all the coordinations between Ghana and the other international world to the AusIMM head office in Australia. And I will be your chairperson for this discussion. We have an excellent lineup of speakers. Who will share their insights on the topics mentioned earlier. That's Prince Osisiadan, CEO, SUCCA Africa, and Engineer Kenneth Yeboah, HSE Manager, Asante Gold, Bibiani Limited. I welcome you all to this session, and I expect everybody will pay the necessary attentive attention and take notes for the benefit of you today and tomorrow. As you jump to the industry, you will appreciate so much of these very important topics. Let's get started, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. George, for the wonderful remarks. So now, we're going to zoom into our presentations. I hope we all have our notebooks, jotters, and pens ready to jot down important factors or information we gain from these wonderful presentations, because I have mine ready. So without wasting much time, we'll be moving into the first presentation. The presentation will be about an overview of the fatality risk management in the mining industry. It is a health and safety topic, and it will be done by none other than Engineer Kenneth Yeboah. He's the Health and Safety Manager at Asante Gold Bibiani Limited. Engineer Kenneth, please do us the honors.
Thank you, Lordina. Thank you, and welcome everybody. Now it's after 4, so I can comfortably say good evening. So should I share my screen from here?
Yes, please, you may.
Okay, let me see. Please, can you see my screen?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, thank you. So, as has been introduced, I am Ken Yeboah from Bibiani. I'm handling health, safety, and environment here at Bibiani, Asante Gold Corporation. Please, can you hear me very well?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
yes,
good.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we will go into issue of risk management, but now we're focusing on fatality risk. So because we don't have much time, I didn't do so much into driving into the nitty-gritties of risk management and all the definitions involving risk management. So when we say, can we please mute? Yeah, okay. So fatality, we are going to focus on fatality risk. So when we say fatality risk management, what exactly is it? So in the mining industry, as we all know, and even though you're students, we manage a lot of risk. It's a very risky industry, but then also we have most mining industry companies have robust risk management protocols to ensure that we can get our guys to come to work every day and go back safely. And over the years, risk management protocols have been improved to make the industry very safe. So as you go through school and join the industry in the coming years, we hope that you entertain no fears. Some of you might have had opportunity to attend internships, so you are well aware of some of the risk management protocols that are in industry. So when we say fatality risk, what are we talking about? So it's actually, this is an integral part of mining risk management. Yeah, all the risk management, we talk about risk assessment and all that. Fatality risk management is an integral part of risk management. But what we are saying about fatality risk is this one focuses on certain risk that could kill people. So we have maybe trip and fall risk. We have exposure to hazardous substances. We have blasting risk. We have equipment risk and all that. But when we say fatality risk, then we are prioritizing the risk, the activities and tasks that come with risk that can kill people. And these, over the past couple of years, industry has focused on fatality risk. It doesn't mean that we have also relegated minor risk that cause injuries to the background. But then the focus is more on making sure that we are not killing people at work. And that's how come fatality risk came into being. Fatality risk is sometimes in other companies referred to as critical risk management. Yeah. And hello? Hello, so Emmanuel Mensah, you were saying something? Yeah. So the fatality risk management, I would normally say FRM or CRM. It actually comprises a simple set of visual symbols and then certain questions that enhances the company's fatality prevention program. So what I'm saying is that fatality risk management is just a system we put in place to prevent fatalities. So others also call it fatality prevention program. So why are we talking about fatality risk management? Why fatality risk management? So all risks pose danger to people. But then when we focus on fatality risk, then it gives us opportunity to prioritize certain risk categories that can kill people, as I've said earlier. So these risks that when they are not controlled, those fatality risks, when they are not well controlled, they have the potential to kill people. And as health and safety professionals and as executives and the leaders in industry, our focus is to prevent first people being killed and then people incurring or sustaining very serious injuries. So that's how come fatality risk management come in. And now most companies have introduced fatality risk management. This has helped to close or bridge some of the gaps that we had in our safe systems of implementation of safe systems of work. You know, when we talk about safe systems, there's small little risk management protocols that we use to ensure that people can work safely, including task observations and all that. But fatality risk zeroes in on risk that could cause fatalities. Yeah. So going forward, I will just present to you some of the key components of a fatality risk management program. So fatality risk management, we start with identifying those risks that can kill people. So if you see the components here, First, identification of risk. So we do carry out risk assessments, and then based on the risk assessment, we look at those which have very high ranking, those with a very high ranking or maybe extreme ranking. Cause disabling injuries. Then we implement the things that will keep people safe. These are the controls. So we put the controls that are key to protecting people from preventing people from being killed. The next is that once you identify and implement those controls, we do verification of those controls. So we have systems now. We are using verification sheets. Others have gone ahead to implement verification softwares, but I think most companies in Ghana, we are still using verification sheets. So we have of the sheets. So verification sheet is given to employees, supervisors, leaders to go out there when those tasks with those kind of risk categories are being conducted. People go and make sure that the controls that we have established as necessary to prevent those injuries and those fatalities, they are in place. We verify that they are in place, and we also verify their effectiveness. If we find out that those critical controls are not in place, then we stop the work, because these are critical or fatal risk. So when a control or a critical control is not in place and the work is being done, we stop the work and make sure that those controls have been put in place before the work can be carried on. Yeah. And then so we track the success and failures and trend the progress. You understand? So sometimes you can see that, oh, this month, how many critical controls have we checked? Maybe we have checked 1,000 critical control implementation. Maybe we got about 950 controls effective, 50 were ineffective. But even though they were ineffective or they are not implemented, we got them to be implemented, but we still will track that out of the 1,000 that we verified, 50 of them at the time of verification were not in place or they were ineffective. That helps us to track the progress. Now, implementation of critical controls. So normally what happens is that companies, through their own incident data, when they want to implement critical controls, through their own incident data, or they analyze industry trends, they identify a certain number of critical risk or fatal risk that are present in their own organization. Yeah, and then for those fatal risks that they identify or we identify, we have symbols that, because of communication issues, sometimes the words, because of literacy issues and the varying levels of understanding, we have certain icons or symbols that represent a particular risk category, and I will show some of them. And then for each risk identified, there's a list of critical controls necessary to prevent those serious injuries or the fatality. After that, we assign accountability for who is responsible for implementing what risk category and which critical controls, and then whose responsibility is it to go do the verifications. So that is it. So who is a risk owner? So normally we call them risk owners. So if it is working at height, which comes with a lot of risk, because of fall from height, we are establishing certain critical controls that will prevent people from falling from height. And we say that maybe the engineering manager or the engineering supervisor at this unit, you are the risk owner for working at height. And then all the critical controls that are outlined, that person will make sure that they are implemented. And then we also have people who are mandated to go and check the effectiveness of those controls that they put in place. I hope I'm not being too abstract, and what I'm saying is understandable. So now I will give some examples. So some examples of fatal risk, the icons or the symbols we use, and the examples of controls. So over here, one of the risks that we deal with in industry, exposure to stored energy. And here I've put two risks together. So entanglement in equipment is one under exposure to stored energy, and then pressurized systems. So these two, that's pressurized system, compressed gases and liquids and all that, you see that I have critical controls. So in the middle, these are some of the critical controls that are used to prevent entanglement in equipment or people getting exposed to when you guard maybe mobile or rotating equipment, when you do guarding, and some of you, those who have been in industry, you might have seen equipment guarding before. So maybe conveyor belts, they have guards, or rotating parts of certain machines, we put guards on them and all that, interlocks. Avoiding the use of loose clothing, emergency stops, especially when you go to process plant, for instance, the conveyor belts have emergency stops or maybe emergency switches, or a lot of equipment which may pose those kind of risk have switches, which are emergency switches. In case of emergency, people getting entangled, you can just press or pull the pull wire and the conveyor belt will stop. Another risk category is working in confined space. Confined spaces pose one of the critical risk in industry. So confined space have its critical controls like atmospheric testing and monitoring, energy isolation, cleaning, draining, and purging the system. And you can see the icon on the far end. You see the icon that is used to represent confined space entry or event in confined space. Then we can have contact with electricity, which is a major risk in industry. And then some of the controls that we put in place to ensure that we can arrest those risks, and then the icon that is used to represent contact with electricity. I go further. We also have mobile equipment, pedestrian interaction, or mobile maybe operation of mobile equipment, the critical controls, the braking system, the steering, and all that, pedestrian vehicle segregation, critical vehicle safety devices being ensuring that they are there, and then the icon or the symbol that represent that one, equipment, people interaction. Uncontrolled or dropped load during lifting. So these are from lifting operations, especially using hoists and cranes and all that. These activities are also very dangerous. They pose significant risk, and normally most companies have it on their critical risk list. And so we have barricading and exclusion zones, routine and scheduled inspection, to ensure that there is consistent and uniform communication between the crane operator and the signaler and all that. And you see the icon when there's uncontrolled or dropped load. And then finally, I'll look at fire and explosion with its icon at the far end, and some of the controls that are used. These are non-exhaustive. These are some of the examples I've provided. And you see that for fire and shielding of fuel sources from hot surfaces, combustible material management, and high voltage for that. These are all some critical controls that are used to ensure that we can hold in check fires and explosions. Now I go to my next slide, which is verification of critical control. So this is a sheet, an example. So this is like the fall from height or working at height verification sheet. So if you can see that I see fall prevention or fall restraint equipment, and it's asking a question. So if someone goes to do verification, there's working at height being done, and someone goes to do verification of critical controls under the fall prevention and restraint equipment, we can ask the question: is a hard barrier in place that will prevent a person getting close to an open edge? And then when you assess it, that means that your control either is not in place, is absent, or ineffective. Sometimes you can also have non-applicable, depending on the situation. And then the next one is where mobile and elevated work platforms are in use, are people using fall protection equipment? So that is under prevention and then restraint equipment. Then the next one is fall protection and fall arrest. So when somebody is in force, personnel using approved full body harnesses filled with a shock absorber lanyard So this is even in case the person falls, because we are looking at preventing the incident itself or mitigating the severity of the consequence. So even if the person falls, we should be able to arrest the person from hitting the ground. So these are some of the controls that we put in place to ensure that we prevent the fall from happening, or even if a fall happens, we can reduce the severity of the injury that or the consequence of that. Now, finally, I will talk about verification sheet completion. So when we answer all the questions on the verification sheet, then some of the actions that need to be taken based on whether some controls were absent or ineffective. Example is given here, that number one action is ensure all harness on site are placed on inspection register and are being inspected. So this one will come from maybe the fact that the harnesses have not been inspected and they were not on register. And then who is responsible for effecting this action, corrective action, and the timeline for doing that. Another example, recall and inspect all safety harnesses and ensure all defective safety harnesses are removed from operation and discarded. Also, a maintenance foreman or something, and giving the timeline. This is just example. And then at the end of the day, you put some notes. We put some notes there, as I can say. So the snap hook on the harness is damaged and the hook is bent. So this was an observation that the person doing the verification saw, and then he has made these comments. So basically, this is just an overview of fatality risk management or critical risk management. We don't want to go into details for want of time, and maybe as time goes on, maybe we can also take the discussion forward as we if we want to. Yeah. Hello. Okay. So as time goes on, if we want to take the discussion further, this is just an overview, and I just gave it's like a teaser. As time goes on, we can go more into details and how we do that. We take the data and what we do with the data, those controls which are in place and those which are failed or which are absent and all that, and how we go along in improving our risk management protocols. So I'll end it here, and thank you for listening. I'll open the floor for any questions or contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Kenneth. The questions will come in later after both presentations. Thank you very much for such a student presentation, taking us through fatality risk management, from what fatality risk management is through to the verification sheet and its samples. Thank you very much. We've learned a lot from it. I hope we've all really taken into consideration what we've been taught right now. So without wasting much time, yes. So without wasting much time, we'll be moving into our second presentation. And this presentation is about how to become a sustainability or environmental safety and government professional. It's from a practitioner's perspective. And this presentation will be done by Engineer Prince Osisiadan, who is the CEO at SUCCA Africa. Engineer Prince, please, do us the honors.
Good afternoon, everyone on the call. And I would like to give everybody a wave to see who is speaking. So a brief one to everyone on the call. So this afternoon, what we're going to discuss is just going to look into how potentially you can end up being a sustainability or ESG practitioner in the coming years. So, one basic rule for this engagement is that, please, you can quote whatever I will say, but don't attribute the source to me or anybody, any commentary that somebody makes. maybe in the form of a question or as part of the engagement, please don't attribute it to the person. So we'll look at just why ESG matters or sustainability matters in the mining environment, career paths. Then I'll share some experience, how I ended up in sustainability or ESG matters, and how to start your journey. So if you look at why ESG matters, I'll link it to what Engineer Ken just presented to you. If now you go and you are familiar with even the tailings dam, if there's a tailings dam failure, you are likely to have a fatality. So going forward, you realize that in the near future, when Engineer Ken is talking about his fatality risk, he's likely to consider one of these things as part of the fatality risk because ESG is an emerging area. Although in the mining space, it has been there for a long time, but in terms of putting it together to make sure that it gives it a different form of approach, it's now seen as something new. So if you go into a typical mine, you could see that, and mining is energy intensive. So drawing energy comes with associated emissions. If you look at environmental management, it has been there for a long time, and it will continue to be there till the mining is no more available. We realize that almost every mine lives or interface with the community. So what to mine and ensure that the community also gets the benefit or they are able to also not impacted negatively is also within the ESG space. Then the governance processes. So if you look at anti-corruption, bribery, the fact that the mines must pay taxes, they need to comply with laws. These are all the governance side of things. So before we go into this, there's this myth. Sometimes you hear sustainability, sometimes you hear ESG. So what is the difference between these two? People use them interchangeably, but they are not the same. So when you talk about sustainability, then you are looking at where, as people, we can develop and make sure that we have economic development at the level that that development do not impact on the environment negatively and also do not impact negatively on the people who interface with such development. So the people could be people who are directly involved in the process of executing a developmental project and people who are likely to also be beneficiaries or who will, one way or the other, interface with that economic development. So you're developing, but you need to ensure that the environmental ecosystem, so looking at air, water, and land, you don't need to develop and make sure that you impact on it negatively. So if you look at sustainability, it's more like on the national context. If you bring it to a corporate level, maybe a mining company or any business entity, sustainability, basically, you're looking at how you are big profitable in the same way preventing negative impact on individual choices. What are you driving? What are you eating? Are you driving an EV or internal combustion engine? Are you eating beef or as compared to vegetarian meal? Because if you eat beef, that there's emission, it comes from cows. And one major sources of emissions, the cow's fat, that's where you have your methane coming. Well, that's one major source. So that's sustainability. But ESG is just that it started from the financial sector where they needed to come out. So everybody is saying that they need to measure how a company is sustainable. So if you pick maybe Goldfields, Newmont, Asante, Asanko, how do you ensure that you measure them to make sure that they are sustainable, making sure that they are making profit and also avoiding negative impact and also not impacting on the community negatively. So it's just people agreeing that if you pick each organization, let's come with a set of parameters that we can use to measure their environmental performance, measure their social performance, and measure their governance performance. So that's what ESG is about. It's metrics or parameters that you use to measure the performance of a company or an entity. So basically, that started in 2004. And interestingly, it was under the UN Global Compact, which was commissioned by our own Kofi Annan. So that's how ESG. So ESG is a subset of sustainability. So when you hear ESG, it's a set of parameters used to measure the performance, environment, social, and governance performance of any entity to test how sustainable they are. So just be clear in your mind. Then let's look at how the career paths, how you a practitioner. There are three categories. The first category is that people will start working without saying that they want to be sustainability professionals, but their roles will definitely define them and shape them into sustainability practice. So such roles, you could see HSE practitioners, health, safety, and environment practitioners, community relation practitioners, sometimes people in legal and compliance. These are the most dominant areas that they end up being sustainability or ESG practitioners. Other groups will also say that I want to study, like where you find yourself. You can say that I want to study a course and end up being a sustainability practitioner. Either you're looking at environmental management, engineering, resource management, mining engineering, or anything that is linked or underpins sustainability practice. So that's the undergraduate level. Postgraduate level, you're looking at people say they want to study in climate policy, sustainable finance, corporate social responsibility. They want to do MBA. So that will also lead them into sustainability practice. Then the third group is they can fall in any of these groups, but they say that we want to come out with professional certifications. So we have GRI certified sustainability professional. We have ISO 14001 or 45001. 45001 is for health and safety. 14,001 is for environmental management, being a lead auditor. Then you have CFA ESG investing. So if you want to practice sustainability when it comes to the investment arena, that's what you look out for. Then we have the Global Association of Risk Professionals, Sustainability and Climate Risk Professional Certification. Mostly if you want to end up in the financial sector, in the banking sector, investment, people will end up studying that course. Then the FSA credential, you're also looking at more of also in investment and in the financial area. Then Cambridge is a very huge place that you can learn a lot of things when it comes to sustainability. Cambridge Institute of Sustainability Leadership. But if you look at it, all I will say is that you need to do a combination of all of these things. Some people also combine. So I'll use myself as an example. So I started as a plant metallurgist, and my first place was of work is where Engineer Ken presented from. That it used to be called Anglo Good Asante Bibiani mine. That's where I started practice. When I started practicing, and sometimes when I go for lunch and I see my friends from ADMI and all that, I say, people are having a different kind of application when it comes to engineering. So I became fond of HSE practice. So now, how do I do it? I had to stop the work and now go to study environmental resource management. When I studied it, then I had to look at doing health and safety individual because I've now learned the environment side. So I went to GEMPA and also studied health and safety, occupational health and safety. That was Doshan. And that's why I met Engineer Ken. And from that time, he has been I've been his mentee, and we are continuing to be. So anytime I see him, I salute him. He's guided me through most of my practice, and I continue to consult him most of the time. So when I ventured into that area and I started practicing, So I've done it in construction, in transport, in mining. So I had to practice it in Diamond Mining Corporation and all that job. 600 is work. Kimpiski is also my handiwork. Mevenpick is my handiwork. I was the HSE consultant for such projects. Then, over a period of time, I realized that that space, we didn't have people who are grounded with legal, in terms of from the legal perspective. So when you say you want an environmental lawyer, who can you find? Health and safety lawyer. So now, if there is an incident in a mine and you want somebody who understands health and safety, who is there to defend or lead the prosecution? So looking at that gap, then I ended up also studying law. Then I started practicing law complementary to my HSC practice, because I didn't stop this time, but I had to make sure it complements it. Then looking at that space, I realized that in the future, sustainability is the future, because I realized that health and safety now has been placed within the social arm of ESG. Then I started looking into sustainability practice, where I remember my first training was in Oslo, looking at how I report on sustainability. And when I went, I was the only person from Africa. They asked me, what are you doing here? But with all of these things, over time, I would take over it. Then I had to go and study also in Cambridge on sustainability. I had to go into Oxford, study about sustainability. The reason for moving around in this area is that these are the highest point of the practice, because sustainability is new. So if you don't take time, and for you to make sure you have an impact, you need to be at the highest point to be able to impact. So if you look at the few minutes I want to take to wrap up. So in terms of skill set to be in the sustainability arena, you need to have technical skills or soft skills, and there's an emerging skill. So technical skills, how do you develop a sustainability strategy? Engineer Ken was talking about fatality risk. There's also ESG risk management. How do you report on your sustainability performance? How do you even track your sustainability performance? And what are the laws that are applicable? So that's the technical side of it. The soft skills is that what I tell people in sustainability practice is that if you want to be a sustainability practitioner, you need to have a good social skills. Other than you can lead it, because you're moving almost everybody within the organization to charter a path. Most of the time, they are not interested in discussing. So now, most the community issues come, you want them to pay attention to the table. And this also ties into more of change management, because most of the things that we are doing now, climate risk assessment is a key thing, which is a major change. Almost every mine needs to do it. That change, how do you drive everybody around the table to be able to get along? And you should be able to communicate very better, because your communication skills should be very direct, should be very clear, and people should be able to understand you. And there are some emerging skills, but most of them are linked to the use of AI. So you could see that data and AI analytics. Before I joined the call, now the new LI even being introduced by the EPA, they want real-time monitoring of environmental data. So if you're measuring air quality, it should be real-time, where you should be able to have a... So these are some of the emerging areas. Climate risk assessment. How do we ensure that sustainability in our supply chains? These are emerging areas coming up. So if you look at, I'll skip this slide and go straight to the next one. So, because I want us to be able to have time to talk more. So if you look at from where you sit, how do you jump into sustainability practice? How do you walk into sustainability practice? The first thing is that you need to do more of a voluntary work in sustainability projects. I know in UMaT, Dr. Frank Boateng has a mineral resource institute that is put up. Can you even volunteer that you want to go and work in that resource institute and understand how resource management, a sustainable resource management is in different organizations? Or even outside the mining area, there are a lot of consultants doing work in there. You find somebody online, you just go in there and workshop and work with the person. Then you need to start also taking courses online, or short courses or professional courses, because you're in school now. So what you can do is that you can start studying. By the time you finish, it's complementary to the skill set you have. I always say you need to have competitive and comparative advantage. So you can look at Global Association of Risk Professionals, Sustainability and Climate Risk Professional, Cambridge Institute of Sustainability Leadership have short courses. Is it possible to look at it and make sure that you get certification alongside? Don't do what I did so many years ago. Don't stop the work and you want to come back, because now stopping work and most of the time coming back is very difficult. So the last one is that most of the practice is shaped by how the laws coming up, regulations. So key one is that the EPA has issued a new act where now, even when they convict your company, directors and officers of the company are automatically convicted. So it's shaping the direction of practice. The central bank continued to issue regulations. Now they say every bank must do climate risk assessment. What is the impact on other businesses? It means that other businesses going forward will also be required to do climate risk assessment. That's why you see climate risk assessment being done by miners or mining companies, because people who put their monies into these banks, investors, are now requesting for that. So you need to monitor the laws, and that's the way it will shape the practice, because it's either policy or regulations that shape the practice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Prince, for such a wonderful presentation. Personally, I'm an environmental science student, so topics about sustainability really stand out to me. Thank you for taking us through how we can be sustainability practitioners, taking us through your journey to inspire us as well, and also, how to be able to start our journey as ESG practitioners. We should volunteer, take short online courses, and stay informed on new laws and regulations as well. Thank you very much once again, Engineer Prince Osisiadan, for this wonderful, wonderful presentation. So now, without wasting much time, we've been really educated both by Engineer Kenneth Yeboah and Engineer Prince Osisiadan. So now we'll be moving into the question and answer session. So if you have any questions, anything you need clarity on, now the floor is open. You can gently raise up your hand. I'll call you to be able to voice out your question. You can also type your question in the text box. I'll read it out for you so that your question will be addressed. So if you have a question, please raise up your hand, or you can type it out in the chat box.
Madam Moderator, before the questions, can I say some few words?
Yes, please.
Yes, first of all, let me thank Prince and Ken for taking this presentation at very short notice. In fact, I contacted Ken because he is one expert in Ghana to speak. And I think I met Prince too at one of the lunches in Ghana some time back. But these topics became a concern to me, and this is the reason why I organized this webinar when I was going around Africa. In fact, in Madagascar, there was a project being presented by a Ghanaian expert to try and bring investors into the project. So this is a developing project. They need about $800 million to fund the development of the project. Now, this Ghanaian expert had about maybe 30 investors from around the world. on an investment roadshow to understand the project and decide whether to invest or not. For those of you who don't understand funding, first of all, they go through all the technical due diligence, commercial, legal, and then they go on site. So going to site is the last of the protocols to decide whether to invest or not. And so after the presentation, the questions came up. And one of the investors asked how he had accounted for ESG in all his designs and how he's going to measure them. It completely took him off guard because he had no clue on ESG. And this is the technical guy who has been hired to lead a project to development. And that raised a lot of concerns because a lot of the investors walked away despite the brilliant technical presentation. That was one. Two, when I was going around Africa, it became a big issue, especially on the safety side. And that question will go to Ken very soon. I've sat in few shareholder meetings by the big players, Rio Tinto, BHP, and so on. And the question keeps coming up. Why is the mining industry still killing people? With all the experiences that we've had over the years, robust controls. Just 3 days ago, 3 experts were killed in Guinea in an iron ore mine. The mine is on hold while investigations are going on. In Ghana, there have been some few fatalities. In fact, when I was leading operations, my biggest nightmare every day that I pray is that everybody goes home without a fatality. Because during our time, you, the operations manager, or the general manager, will be tried in court, will be prosecuted, not the company. Anytime there's a fatality, it's you, the legal regulatory person, that goes to court. So it's been a big, big concern. Now, a few days ago, at the board level, we were trying to hire a CEO for a company. The potential one, shortlisted by a recruitment agent, came on board. The board of directors were interviewing him. And a question on ESG came up. He was completely taken aback, off guard as well. In fact, one of his achievements, when he was talking about safety achievements, was reducing fatalities from 4 to 1. And that became a big concern because he thinks even having 1 fatality is an achievement. So that became a very big concern as well. And as a result of that, we couldn't hire him. So if you are listening to this, it's not, don't take it lightly, because if you want to be a CEO, you have to be on top of everything: industrial relations, ESG, safety, and so on. Even if you are not an expert, you need to understand these parameters that are being measured, because you are the one going to report to the board and so on. So Ken, with these comments, I would like to ask you, with all your experience in Oman, Ghana, other places, putting all these safety protocols in place, why are we still killing people?
That's a big one. That's a real big question. I'll start from in trying to answer. I don't know whether I can get the correct answer, but I'll start from the perspective of, for safe systems of work, normally it's it has 2 legs or 2 pillars. We have the system that the organization put in place, or the system, the protocols, like within fatality risk management protocols, all the system we put in place, and then behaviors. So if you have an organization that has all the robust risk management systems in place, and they don't work on people's behaviors in terms of heart and minds of people, then the systems can be there, but you need the people and their behaviors to man the systems. And when the behaviors are not consistent with what we want, how we want the system to work, then of course those defenses we put in place will fail. So one is behaviors, and also sometimes the systems we put in place themselves at the leadership level, sometimes leadership commitment, because of competing things between production. When you have an organization which is facing maybe financial difficulties or production difficulties, then the aspect of safety sometimes surface. And then that one leaves chance as like a Swiss cheese for the hazard to go through the holes and then precipitate into incidents. Maybe these are some of the things that. So we look at all these things, the systems side of things, and then the behavior. So when we realize that, like Bibiani, for instance, I'm dealing with both systems and people's behaviors. Yeah, so we haven't had fatality, but we keep getting incidents because anytime we analyze the incident, we do the incident investigation, we realize that we're still lacking. We are lacking in some aspect of systems, robust systems, and also the behaviors, the safety culture. It's weak, and then we are building. So just now we have started a program called Courageous Safety Leadership Program, where we are encouraging and we are encouraging people to be courageous in terms of protecting themselves and protecting their people, their co-workers. So that is on the behavior side. And then the system also, we're trying to make sure that our preventive systems and our intervention systems are also robust enough to be able to meet the behaviors that we are trying to build. I don't know. I can go to Obuasi. When I was in Obuasi, we also did a safety transformation program, and we worked on the systems and the behaviors, and we were able to achieve tremendous improvements in preventing fatalities in Obuasi, especially underground. I don't know whether these are some of my thoughts on your question.
Okay, that's a good one. Now to Prince. ESG has been there since 2004, but the industry had not taken it seriously until recently, when investors made it a condition to invest in projects. Now, what is the reason why a lot of these CEOs and general managers especially are not up to speed with ESG principles? Because I visit many sites, whether it's in Australia, whether it's in Africa. When these things come up, they fall short of the clear understanding of ESG. At the corporate level, it's okay, but at the site level, it's not penetrating. So you, as an expert with your law, everything, what can we do to help educate, especially top management, on ESG? Because one of the challenges for the big players at the corporate level is when they are seeking funding, the expectation is that if you're a CEO or a general manager, you have to understand all the parameters that go into project funding: technical, commercial, legal, and so on. And then when these investors are okay with all the corporate information and they go to sites, they realize that management is short on knowledge about ESG. So what is the problem? That's the first one. And second, how do we fix it?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll start by saying that the problem in the past was that people thought that ESG matters were linked to high-risk sectors like oil and gas, mining, construction. So initially, if you could see that the upsurge of ESG regulations on all that were being enforced within these areas. However, they came to realize that there's somebody who has lived in Obuasi, he's never entered AGA before. There's somebody in Bibiani who has never entered Asante before. So they realize that with these high-risk sectors, most of the time, they are isolated from the community. And in terms of influence, it's low. So if you're not doing business with them, nothing happens. So that's why in recent times, you could see that the financial sector is leading the charge. So now the phrase that we use is that put the control where people will go for money. So that's why now they have network for greening the financial system, where all central banks globally is expected to make sure that ESG is a condition, is integrated into the financial system. The reason is that they will make sure that central banks comply. Almost everybody needs money from a bank. Even when you have the money and you want to transmit it to a beneficiary, it needs to go through the banking system. Once it goes through the banking system, they will put in conditions. So that's why if you look at agreement between banks or investors and beneficiaries. There's always, in the master lending agreement, there are key provisions requiring them to take steps to address environment, social, and governance issues. Another key thing was that, and now it's been awakened. I'm happy that you cited the example where people, officers or directors of the company will rather go to court. So in the past, you could see that when there's an environmental issue linked to a company or a social issue linked to a company, the practice was that the company will be sued. And the corporate is a separate legal entity. Removed from it, so they don't really feel it. But with the collapse of the dam at Val in Brazil, when that dam collapsed, the shareholders sued the directors of the company. And that has opened up a new trajectory in the legal practice. So if you look at Section 37 of our new Environmental Protection Act, the moment now your company is convicted of any environmental harm, automatically as directors and officers, you're also convicted. The only time you are not convicted is if you're able to demonstrate that you as a director personally, you were diligent in your process and it happened without you being liable in any form or shape, then that's how you get away. So our laws used to deal with the companies, but not being extended to officers of companies. So they were not paying attention. But with this upsurge of people being prosecuted with VAL, so the VAL, even the people were found guilty, the directors of the company. And now with the new EPA Act criminalizing the issue that if you are part of an organization that causes an negative environmental impact, you also commit an offense and you'll be convicted and the appropriate sanctions being meted out to you. I think it will shape the space, and top leadership will now pay attention. So two things, with the investors now looking for it, and with the law catching up and saying that when there's a negative environmental impact, automatically you an officer, you're also liable for it. I think that it will be a wake-up call for most CEOs and people leading businesses to pay attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henry, for these wonderful questions. As earlier stated, if you have any questions, you can either raise up your hands or type it out in the text box. It will be read out for appropriate answers. So right now I have a question from Danso Bright Jr. in the text box. And I read, it says, beyond the typical degree, what specific professional certifications are most valuable for a land administration graduate entering the sustainability field? He added that, do you see the highest demand for professionals with an integrated land administration and sustainability background? So I think what Bright Jr. wants to know is if what are the most valuable specific professional certifications for a land administration graduate entering the sustainability field. I hope I've read out your question well. Right. So this question is to either Engineer Henry either Engineer Ken or Prince.
Okay, I'll attempt to answer it. So I always say the best form of certificate to enter any form of practice is the act of doing it. So if you look at people mostly in the sustainability space, most of the people are from natural resources. And you have people also having dealt with land issues, also venturing into the space. But the first form of certification is that to be able to be associated with an organization that really does sustainability, implements sustainability, or implement an aspect of it that you learn the process. That is number one. Number two is the professional. Certain things are being done. So if you look at it, you can zoom straight into it and say that you want to do a postgraduate course in sustainability or sustainability management or environmental engineering or environmental science or environmental resource to complement what you've learned in land administration. The other arm is to go for the professional certificates. Because if you look at the professional certification, what I always say is that the Global Association of Risk Professional, the Sustainable and Climate Risk Professional, is one of the few courses that really help you to get a grasp of exactly what sustainability is about. The only thing is that the course is biased towards the financial systems. But broadly, when you learn it, it really helps you. Then, if you know it, then you look at the Global Reporting Initiative course on how to become a sustainability practitioner. That opens you up to be able to learn the rudiments on how you need to disclose information about your sustainability performance. In that vein, you tend to understand how you need to arrive at a better sustainability performance and be able to deliver it. Because for you to disclose, you need to understand the workings behind the performance. So you can just look at it from this perspective and you can end up in it. And you shouldn't be scared. You just need to venture into it. And the moment you venture, you just take it up. Let me give you a practical example. The more you do it and you become experienced, the sky is the limit. Because our company sits in Ghana, but we've beaten consultants in South Africa to work for the Johannesburg Stock Exchange on a sustainability project. When we got there, they say, "Are you people from Europe?" But they realized that we're from Ghana. And we work in Kenya, we work in Nigeria, we work for even Dangote Cement. Why? Because we've taken time to go through the mill to learn the basics. And learning is by practice. I always say that's the best form of practice. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Prince. I hope your question is answered and so bright. So the next question is, what are some of the most common human factors that lead to safety incidents, and how can we upcoming engineers contribute to stronger safety culture on site?
I guess that goes to me.
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah, maybe Engineer Prince can also assist, but I will take it off. You know, the issues of human factors, we normally classify human factors into three. Human factors contributing to incidents. So we have slips and lapses. So when you say slips and lapses, normally they have to do with attentiveness and forgetfulness and forgetfulness and all that. Then we have mistakes, where people genuinely make mistakes. Mistakes can come from different perspectives. And then we have violations. So violation is a deliberate attempt to do A instead of B. So these are the three main categories of the human factors. When we analyze incidents or when we do incident investigations, and there are human factors or behavioral factors, we categorize them. Oh, was it a slip or a lapse? Or was it a mistake? Or it was a violation? And even in the issue of violation, we still go ahead to categorize into three types. We have the deliberate violation, where the person actually knows that he's supposed to do a sequence. The sequence is AAB, but then he thinks that no, it's better for me if I do BAB. This is a violation, deliberate. And then we have the situational violation, where people violate based on certain circumstances. They violate. If we had time, we could have given examples. And then we have exceptional violation, where maybe there's an incident or there's an emergency, and using the conventional emergency response procedures will not really address the incident the way it should be. So people violate the emergency response protocols and do different things to ensure that they can easily arrest the emergency situation. So that is it. As upcoming graduates who are coming to industry, number one, when you come, you will be taken through inductions, or you go through inductions, you go through training. So issues of slips and lapses, these are, as I said, forgetfulness and whatever. So you make sure you be attentive when all the training and all the orientation and everything that will be given to you, you pay attention so that the issues of slips and laps will not come in. Then mistakes are also when people don't pick up training very well, training information very well, and they make mistakes. A sequence is 1 1 2 2, and then he's in the training room, or he's on the simulator, and he picks a different kind of sequence, and then he goes to the field and he's making mistakes. Yeah, and in those situations of slips, lapses, and mistakes, we don't penalize. When we do investigation, we realize that it is a slip, it is a lapse, it is a mistake, it is retraining, re-coaching, and all that. But when you know what to do to keep yourself safe and keep your co-workers safe, and you decide to do otherwise, that is a violation, and that goes with disciplinary processes. So you just have to ensure that you know the differences between these three human factors, and you make sure that out of violation at all costs, you avoid violations, and then mistakes also, you stay alert, vigilant, and that all the information is given. Even if you're a geologist, training program, you pick all the information that is giving you very well. There's nothing like you have 70% correct in industry, so you are A. In industry, it should be 100%. So get to know, maybe you get first class by scoring 71%. But in industry, 71% will not give you first class, because you will be making mistakes and all that. I don't know if this one helps.
Engineer Ken, technically, Engineer Ken is my senior, so when he speaks, mostly I don't want to talk. So, but this one now add something we call the elephant in the room when it comes to human failures.
Yes.
It's embedded in what
Yeah.
Engineer Ken said, mostly the culture of a group of people. So an example is that I remember we spent so much money in Newmont Mining Corporation working on fatality fatigue management. And we installed this in the dump trucks, we do this, we do training. But the culture of most of these operators were that when they close, they go and drive their taxis in Ahafo, Kenya. So he is done with his shifts, then he'll be driving his taxi in town. He comes the next day and he's tired. So the culture of the people is very important. So for you going into industry, one thing you need to understand is that sometimes the culture that prevails in where we live, where most of the time we spend most of our time, you realize that when you go to industry, it's a bit opposite. Another example is like waste management. We throw our waste anywhere, but when you go into the mine, they say waste segregation. So if you don't take time, the culture from home will be carried into your mindset. So what you need to do is that when you get there, as Engineer Ken said, take time to learn the culture of the company. And when you learn it, you also take it back to your community to be impactful. That's the only way we can always give back to the community. Thank you.
Thanks, Engineer Prince. And maybe to add,
Thank you very much, Engineer
to add
Prince.
to what you just said, coming from school to industry, sometimes we come with all our youthful exuberance and all that. I have suffered it when I was very young. I came into industry. I was very exuberant and all that, and I suffered the consequence at the start of my career. I was sacked before for still being boisterous and being still thinking I was in school instead of embracing all the information and all the rules and regulations that have been given to me in the industry. And I was been fired before, early times in my career. But then that was also a turning point that led me to maybe greater heights, because maybe it's also the doing of the Lord. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Kenneth. So moving on, a question from Samuel Ayi asking, how do I practice HSC and ESG as part of strenuous academic work? Engineer Kenneth can take this on for us.
What's the question again?
Samuel I is asking, how do I practice HSE and ESG as part of strenuous academic work?
How does he practice ESG?
He wants to know how he can practice. Yes, please.
As part of strenuous academic work?
Yes.
I don't know if I understand the question.
Engineer Ken, maybe I'll help. So whilst your academic work is going on, please, the best form to learn and to be able to
practice or learn?
To practice and learn.
I think it can be used interchangeably.
Yeah, it's internships. Don't play with internships. Every break you have, try and get an internship. That's the best way. So if you look at most practitioners in the mines, you can talk to them. The ones doing very well in terms of practice are mostly people who spend time taking a lot of internships. Because I remember for our time, I remember the first time I entered onto a CIL tank, a carbon in leach tank at Bibiani. I've not entered the mine before. So when I went there, you could see that the first few months is now even to understand what is around you. Hey, how do you work? Because CIL tanks are high. Even the working from height, the fear of it and all that adjustment can slow you. So the best way is always do internship. And I remember one interesting thing I always not forget. In my Engineer Ken, this program run by Mrs. Momade, they used to talk to us about orifice. And I never knew what an orifice is. We're doing all the calculations in the room. But when I went doing national service, orifice is just something simple. You have a bigger pipe going into a smaller pipe. So this is more like a step down to make sure that you decrease decrease the radius and make sure it passes through. Something basic, but I never understood it. So anytime in the class, it was more like, I need to now try to understand what is an orifice. So you can imagine how I learned through the process. The best way is internships. And please try to have mentors. I know this session is all about mentors. I mentioned to you when I started my career initially, Engineer Ken was my mentor. Let me show you a very interesting example. I was given a big post with a big car. And when I started, what I would do is that I'll do some of my office was closer to him. So I'll do some of my work and take it to him for him to correct during his lunch time. And I'll take it back. And the people will believe, hey, the guy is doing well. Please, practice is all about having good intentions and making sure that you integrate into industry anytime, any day you have the opportunity.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thanks for that. Yeah, I saw now I saw the question in the chat. Okay, I think you have answered it very well. That's okay. Thanks.
Thank you very much. So another question from Jefta Bonzi. It says, please, as ESG becomes increasingly data-driven per the examples given in the presentation, how do you see the role of data scientists evolving, supporting sustainability and ethical governance?
It's going to be huge. So if you have any opportunity to enter into that space, because everything is data-driven, and now what is becoming complementary is the use of artificial intelligence to interpret to gather the data, interpret it, and inform decision-making. So if you are upcoming person and you want to enter the space, you can look at how artificial intelligence, data management, and ESG interface, and you'll be the one of the most sought after persons anywhere you find yourself. Because to gather the data, you need artificial intelligence. When you gather it, interpretation, you need it. Even how it informs decision. Because if you are doing climate risk assessment, you need to do modeling. If the temperature is 1.5 degrees, how is this mine going to be like? The operations of the mine going to be affected? If it's 2 degrees, how is it going to affect the operations of the mine? Mind you, if temperature goes up, even when people shift, they can either work productively throughout their shift, or when they come to even work, they are not productive like when the temperature is lower. So these are all things that you need to do. So if you go into that aspect, I'm telling you, in the next few years, everybody will be looking for you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Prince. I'd like to remind us all to do well to mute our microphones so we'll be able to benefit from what our student speakers are telling us. So, the next question, Abu Kezia wants to know, how do we educate our community workers as well as everyone along the working period as time goes on these fatality risks, though they go through inductions and training before they begin work? Kezia wants to know how we can educate our community and workers as well as everyone along working periods on fatality risks.
I hope I understand the question. Community workers. I hope he's actually referring to workers, because fatality risk, we do fatality risk management in the company. So the workers are the target of fatality risk management protocols. So during inductions, any company that has fatality risk management as part of its risk management protocols also talks about it in inductions. And then the trainings themselves, the training on the program, fatality risk management program, or the critical risk management program, also they are training, and we train workers on how to do the verifications, the control verifications, and all that. I don't know if people in the community, they are not in the company, so those risks do not apply to them, unless maybe areas where we have like people equipment interactions in the community, like some mining companies. You see maybe hot trucks, maybe crossing maybe main roads, or maybe we have farmers walking along haul roads to their farm and all that. In that case, also we do the segregation of equipment and people. So we have the walkways and all that. And we like in Bibiani, for instance, we have started a program of community health and safety management plan, where we incorporate safety education into our community outreach programs to ensure that even the risks that apply to the communities are also we are communicated to them in terms of the implication of crossing our whole routes when we have given them walkways and all that. But when it comes to the company, inside the company itself, fatality risk management, or these fatality risks, are communicated to all workers at inductions, at trainings, and the verifications. Most workers, where they applicable, are also part of the verification of the controls. So once they also participate in the control verification, they become used to the risk, and then they adhere to all the protocols. I hope I've answered the question. The question was a bit tricky, but I hope it answers. Abu Kezia, I hope I've answered your question, or if there's any clarity you want me to give. Thank you.
Okay, that says yes. Thank you very much, Engineer Kenneth, Engineer Prince. Please, if anyone has any other question, please, you can type it in the chat box or raise up your hand and I'll call you so you can speak out your question.
Madam Moderator, just one comment or
yes, please.
A gift to students.
Okay.
Whenever you go for interviews, whether it's graduate trainee, whatever, and so on, some companies will give you the opportunity to ask questions. Or one of the typical questions we ask is, what value are you adding? Even if it is not asked, you take the opportunity to tell them, because you are competing with a number of colleagues. So you need to differentiate yourself. And one of the things that some of you have done intelligently is the topic of ESG, because it's very new to even management of companies. So on one occasion, a candidate asked a question on what the company is doing in terms of ESG practices. And to the panel, it was a powerful one, that a candidate coming for a job is already talking about ESG. So use this opportunity to differentiate yourself with your other colleagues. You've attended a webinar, you put it on your CV, it gives you some points. At the interview process, you also take the opportunity to find a way to bring it in, even if it's not asked directly. That you don't say you're an expert. You say, I have knowledge in ESG practices. And the questions might follow, what sort of knowledge do you have? And then you can highlight some of the stuff that Ken and Prince have said. So this is a gift to you because it comes up all the time. And one way, it's a very powerful way to differentiate yourself among your colleagues. What contribution can you bring to the organization? You don't have much experience, but you can say, based on my professional affiliations, I've been introduced to the concept of risk fatalities management. I've been introduced to the concept of ESG, and all these gives you points that you might overlook. So this is my gift to you today. But overall, thank you very much, Ken and Prince. We'll call on you sometime again to delve more into some of the issues you discussed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you very much, sir.
Engineer. Yes, please. So in the absence of any other question, if there are other questions, you can type it out on the platform. It will be forwarded to our seasoned speakers for appropriate responses. So in the absence of any other question on the webinar. Yes, please.
Yeah, I have that is Yeboah. I just have one comment. Yeah, so what Ms. Entry said is very spot on, very important point he made for up and coming students. We are in industry and we are every time receiving internship students, national service people and graduate trainees. And sometimes it's a bit frustrating when simple things that graduates should know, they are not able to actually, when you ask certain questions. Somebody just only last week, when our national service guys were giving account of themselves for the service, 1 year service that they have done here, and it came up with what project the person did when she was when she was in school. She mentioned her topic, and I asked about, okay, so what was your discussion? What was the outcome of your topic, your project topic? And the person said that, I have forgotten, only 1 year ago. And I said, I finished school like 26 years ago. I did my project on cyanidation of gold oils using plantain ash. And I can remember the discussions, I can remember the outcomes and all that. Only last year you finished and you cannot remember what discussions, what you had on your project topic and what were the outcomes and all that. So please, this is just an advice to you. And also in terms of general knowledge, please try to read wide. This is ESG and fatal risk management and all that, but also try to at least once in a while go away from social media and read few things away from. You are metallurgist, you are mining engineer, but try to read once in a while, maybe once a month. If you can read something else, that will help to broaden your perspective on different topics. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Kenneth. So some of us have our hands up. So I'd like to call upon Nana Okran to speak out his question for the season speakers.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Moderator. Please to Engineer Kenneth. So please, how similar is the fatality risk management to job hazard analysis, or let's say risk assessment in general?
Okay. So job hazard analysis, which is part of risk assessment, is that you take a task or you take an activity and you risk assess it. risk assessment in general is there. It has a process where you identify what are the hazards and what are the risk that those hazards pose, and then they could put the controls in place and all that. So that's general risk assessment. And then job hazard analysis is a detailed risk assessment where now you take the job task, the activity, the job that you're going to do. You take the steps. Each step you analyze the hazards and then you put the controls. So these are general risk assessment. Fatality risk management itself, after risk assessment, and normally we say a baseline risk assessment. So after the risk assessment has been done on a different kind of jobs or tasks, you see that certain tasks or certain jobs are coming out still very, very high risk. They are very, very high. They are still in red. So that means that those high risk, now you have to isolate them and have specific controls in place, because now they are the fatality risk, they are the critical risks that can kill people. So they come out of a risk. And one of the, I hope it's not deep, one of the risk assessment tool we use to do to use in fatality risk management is we call bow tie risk assessment. So when you use bow tie, it's able to let you know which this event is what we don't want to happen, what can precipitate the event, what can we put in place to prevent the event from happening, and even if the event occurs, what can we put in place to reduce the consequences of the impact. So fatality generic risk assessment, and then those tasks or those jobs that come out as high risk, you isolate them, and then you do a fatality risk management program on them. I hope that makes sense to you.
Yes, please. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, please, if I understood you well, it means the job hazard analysis it occurs or is taken after the job hazard analysis. When there are fatalities are still occurring, then you go ahead with the fatality risk assessment or fatality risk management.
So what I said was we have generic risk assessment, which maybe especially when we take baseline. So when you're going to do an operation, you risk assess all your activities. Maybe in the mining department, you risk assess operation of maybe dump truck operation. You risk assess blasting. You risk assess or maybe survey activities. So all the activities that is done in the mining department, you risk assess. When you risk assess and you put the controls, you realize that still some of them come out still red. That means that the risk is still high, and they can kill people. So those risks that come out as high from your risk assessment, you isolate them. When you go to the processing plant, you are dealing with hazardous substances, you are dealing with confined spaces, you are dealing with working at height, you are dealing with energy issues, exposure to energies and all that. So when you do the risk assessment and you put in the controls, you realize that some of them so high, like working around rotating equipment, even some of the controls you put in place, you realize that still the residual risk is high. You also isolate those risks which are still high, and then those become your critical risk. Now that goes on your critical risk management program. Now I hope you understand. Are you there?
I'm sure he does understand very well because he explained it very well for us to understand. Thank you very much, Engineer Kenneth. Also, I'd like to call Ernest Agbepo to voice out his question as well.
Okay,
Ernest,
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please, I want to ask Engineer Prince as to how the ESG is applicable to the small scale mining sector, and how can it be monitored for its effectiveness in terms of the legal aspect. Because what I realized recently, or what is in the news right now, is most of these small scale mining companies, they are the one that are indulging in galamsey the most. So I want to ask, how applicable is ESG in that sector? And moreover, to Engineer Kenneth. I want to ask how risk fatality risk management can be applied and monitored in small scale mining sector, because I think they are the one that are recording most of the fatality when it comes to the mining sector the most.
Okay. So
Prince, do you want to take it? Yours first.
sorry, I wanted to take mine first, then you can come in.
Okay,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Sorry, I think I was muted. So if you look at the way illegal small scale mining is being done, from a personal opinion, I think that for us to be able to have control over small scale mining, we need to treat them and put them in a form of an aggregation where you have an area where they are working under an umbrella, where the key environmental of resources you need to implement some of the environmental controls. One small scale miner is likely not be able to execute that. So if you look at from ESG context and small scale mining, for me, if where I sit, I wish we don't even have small scale mining. But if in case we want to have it, my personal opinion is to have it in an aggregate form, where you have maybe in a communal way, you have about 5 or 6 people working on one mining lease and working together, there are controls that they need to put together. Other than that, one person, there's no way they are likely to meet the obligations required under the, if you look at how you want to implement ESG. I've seen some, is a myth, the Minerals Investment Fund. They say that they want to do responsible mining. They've done this with the EPA. But me, I think it will be very difficult for them to achieve if they want to do it by case basis. So either they do it in an aggregate form, or now below a certain point, you cannot operate. So your concession must be within a certain threshold where it could be, and your grade should be within a certain form so that your operations will be economically viable, where you can implement key environment and social interventions. Other than that, you shouldn't be given a permit to operate as a small-scale miner because the requirements are huge. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, so from, I think the same kind of response applies to fatality risk management in the small scale. So the first thing is that most small scale operations in Ghana at the moment, as we refer to them as galamsey, are illegal. So when people are doing illegal things, how they don't even care about maybe hiring consultants, because what is happening is that even with the big mining companies, there's no law that mandates them to embrace fatality risk management programs. The law is non-prescriptive. The whole thing is the law says that protect your people from no law in Ghana, whether labor law, the LI 2182 or whatever it is, mandates any mining company to implement fatality risk management program. It asks you to protect your workers from injury and fatalities. So whatever program you implement is left with you. But as I said, small scale mining companies, most of them are even illegal. And then for those which are legal, as Engineer Prince said, the resource base is low. So maybe the cooperative kind of thing or the community-based mining where they are put together, and then we can have consultants or maybe a government entity going in to give them the protocols to follow to prevent fatalities and to protect the environment and to put safe systems of work in place. That could help. Else, the current situation we have with most of them being illegal, if fatality risk management doesn't come in, because they are illegal and they are hiding to do their work. No, they're hiding. So how can if I want to go and give free consultancy services to them to protect their people, how do I do it? They are hiding in the forests and in the rivers and doing their work. Nobody can help them. Thank you.
Maybe if I can add to that, and this is where Prince and Ken may be able to help. The cash flow for these small-scale minings are not that huge. So they cannot afford to hire environmentalists, a mining engineer, a geologist, and so on to do things responsibly. And I've been advocating these across Africa, that they can set up what I call technical hubs. So for instance, in the Obuasi district, there are a number of legal small-scale mining going on there. If you set up a small technical hub there with one mining engineer, one processing engineer, operations manager who will be the statutory regulator to regulate all those things, they can service about 15 mines. Then they contribute towards the payment of their salaries. You do that in Aquatia, you do that and so on and so forth. But to do that, you need to have a pool of experts in safety, ESG, and so on. For the other technical side, I think you can easily get it in Ghana. So you put in that pool. In fact, we're trying to, a few years back, we're trying to do an equity funding for the small scale mines. So we put together a fund of about 50 million. And one of the conditions was that when you come for, let's say, 2 million for your small scale mines, we will ensure that you are doing it responsibly. Your processing, your reclamation, and there is a proper mine plan, business plan that encompasses the entire activities of mining. And then once that is done, we will provide you with a technical expertise. So we're going to set up a technical office to provide all those controls, mining, processing, and so on. And that becomes a condition for the funding. Now, unfortunately, in Ghana, they were not interested because they wanted the money to come to their pockets, to come to them directly. But the condition that we set up, which works very, very well in South Africa, is that if you want $1 million worth of excavators, you give us the provider, whether it's in China, Japan, whatever, we will cross-check what you have requested and we'll pay directly to the equipment provider. They were not interested because most of them want the cash to be able to buy their BMWs and cars and so on and so forth. So it didn't work in Ghana, but it worked very well in South Africa and other places. So maybe this is especially Prince. If you're not directly involved when in a typical mine and you don't have any conflict, that's one thing you can take on board. If it's in Asante region, see the entire Asante small scale mines, and then one in other regions as well.
Good one, Mr. Entry. Thanks for that.
Thank you very much, Engineer Henry, Engineer Kenneth, and Prince as well. So for now, all other questions can be addressed, typed out in the platform. You can send your questions to the platform and it will be forwarded to the speakers for appropriate or respective answers. We thank you very much to our seasoned speakers for educating us so much. We've learned a lot. So at this juncture, we'll be zooming into the closing remarks from the chairperson, and it will be done by Mr. George Asongo.
Thank you very much. I'm really, really, really impressed. And as I said in my opening remarks, I did indicate these are very important topics that everybody needed to make sure he takes the necessary notes to help you today and your tomorrow. Thanks to the two speakers for your thought-provoking presentations on an overview of fatality risk management in the mining industry, and how to become a sustainability/ESG professional. I will take them one by one and summarize as best as I can. On the presentation provided on the overview of fatality risk management in the mine industry, this highlighted the importance of identifying and mitigating potential hazards to prevent accidents and ensure a safe working environment. The discussion covered key aspects such as common causes of fatalities in the mining industry, effective risk assessment and management strategies, importance of training and employee engagement. The takeaways include proactive risk management is crucial. That is identifying and mitigating potential hazards, very essential to preventing fatalities in the mining industry. Training and employee engagement are vital. Ensuring that employees are properly trained and engaged in safety protocols is critical to preventing accidents. Technology can enhance safety. Leveraging technologies such as data analytics and monitoring systems can help identify potential hazards and improve safety outcomes. Many mining companies today are employing technology to ensure workplaces are safe, personnel are safe, and collaboration and communication are also key. Effective communication and collaboration among stakeholders, including employees, management, and regulators, is essential to ensuring a safe working environment. So if we all implement, or the mining companies implement all these strategies, then of course, this can reduce the risk of fatalities and create a safer working environment for all employees and machinery. Then I'll touch base with the second speaker, that how to become a sustainability ESG professional. In summary, this also highlighted how one can be ushered into the role of a sustainability or ESG, that is environmental, social, and governance professional, highlighting the skills, knowledge, and experience required to succeed in this field. Key areas covered, that is understanding ESG landscape and industry trends, developing relevant skills and competencies, building a professional network and staying up to date with industry developments, career paths and opportunities in sustainability and ESG. Takeaways that I've put down is interdisciplinary skills are very essential. A sustainability or ESG professional need a combination of technical, business, and soft skills to succeed. Stay adaptable and curious. The ESG landscape is constantly evolving, so professionals need to stay up to date with industry trends and developments. Network and building relationship. Building a strong professional network can help sustainability stroke ESG professionals to stay informed and assess new opportunities. Purpose-driven career a career in sustainability, ESG requires a strong passion for creating positive impacts and a commitment to driving sustainable practices. And I strongly believe if these insights are recognized and obeyed and followed, individuals can better prepare themselves for a career in sustainability and ESG and contribute to creating a more sustainable future. I want to take this opportunity to thank the two great speakers for their expertise. Very intelligent questions were asked, and you had very intelligent answers. I want to thank everybody and also to encourage every individual. In the beginning, the president lined up workshops and gave dates. I will encourage every individual to be part of it because it's a great learning for all of us. And take notes. Make sure you are very close to your mentors. Don't be shy to engage your mentors. Apart from the academics, there are social aspects of things that you can also benefit from your mentors. I want to thank everyone for participating, and we are grateful. And as the founder said, Ken and Prince, we will in future be falling on you for more of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. George. Thank you very much for that wonderful closing remark. Now, to climax everything, I'd like to call Bamfo Edward to give us the vote of thanks as well as the closing prayer.
Right. Good evening. First of all, we want to thank the Almighty Lord for such a successful webinar. And if I could recount, we have about 183 participants joining us. First of all, thank Engineering for making this webinar a success in terms of the organization, coordinating with AusIMM President and the Executive. We also want to thank our chairperson, Mr. George Asongo, for chairing this occasion and seeing to it that we learn great and important thing within the industry. To our speakers, we cannot say nothing more than may God bless you for such insightful presentation. We appreciate it very much. And we believe that this time when we call upon you, you do us the honors in sharing such insightful things with us as young individuals and as young professionals. Two members of AusIMM Tarkwa Student Chapter who join us in your numbers, alumni, graduates, and industry professionals that join us. We can say that may God richly bless you and thank you for gracing this webinar with your presence. We actually appreciate it. Within times as this, we say may God bless you and we thank you. So the organizing crew that made it possible, we say thank you and God bless you. Thank you very much and see you in our workshop series that will be held, God willing, next month. Thank you very much. Bye.
With that, we bring our webinar to an end. Thank you everyone for tuning in and have a good evening.
Thank you.